And we'll get started with Advanced Topics 4, Customized Libraries and Alerts. This and the editing class that I did this morning and we'll do again after this class are probably the two most valuable parts of the training. What we're looking at is the search tools, the tools you use to find stuff, and the tools you use to view and personalize the information that you're looking at. And then also the ability to put alerts on files or libraries so that when something happens that you're interested in, you will automatically get an email. Now, we're working on it, but currently there's no pre-construction-wide search tool. What we do have is a search that will search all of the connect.ncdot.gov. And what that will do is search not only the pre-construction projects, but all of the construction projects, any data that you may have access to at that point. This is a search across all of connect.ncdot.gov. Any projects where you have files that you have access to, any construction projects if you're involved on that side of the business, and several other areas that you generally have access to, such as the roadway design area and other discipline special team sites. This search will search all of those. What you can do is use the filters that are available. When you type a word in this upper area here, it will go out and search the entire database of files. You can then sort it by document type or other metadata values. In this particular case, we can sort by type, and this is a type associated with a particular library in this case. So we're looking for the word monoxide in the human environment library or natural environment library. I'm not sure which at this point. It got past me. And you can see we have 31 results out of the several hundred that were originally found. Yes, it was the Human Environment Library. We can re-expand that and look again at the Project Development Library and see where monoxide might appear. Now what ends up happening is any document that you file on the system, in the space of anywhere from 15 minutes to half an hour, every single word in that document and all the metadata values associated with that document are indexed. And what actually happens when you do a search is it goes out to the index using the words that you've put in the search. And that's how it comes up with a list of files to deliver. Once you get into a project, you notice that this no longer says search, but says search this site. This will search for words across all libraries in your project site. Now notice how this works. If I type in the word concur, it says, oh, there's nothing here that includes the word concur. But if I put in the word concurrence, and that's an intentional spelling mistake, it'll give me an opportunity to try a possible correction. And it looks like there are 3 files here that have the word concurrence in them. Actually, there are only 2 files and a document set that has those 2 files in it. So the document set is listed separately from the files themselves. Now, let's go back to that word concur that I put in originally. In fact, it's looking for the whole word. So if I put a star at the end of concur, it will find concurrence. Star functions as a wildcard, and it will finish off all the word combinations that start with concur and give you a larger result set. So don't forget when you're searching for things to use asterisk as a wildcard to expand word fragments. Otherwise, the index will only look at the actual word that you're searching for. A little reminder about the star. Now, find a site works a little differently. Find a site will only look at the project ID and the project description. And you notice as soon as you start typing, it is giving you all the possible word combinations. Not all the possible word combinations, just the first 10 that it finds that meet that search criteria. So this was I-5874. We'll go back home and try a different search. If I use the word north, there are the first 10 projects that have the word north and the first 10 projects that have the word bridge. However, if we want to look for North Bridge, we have to put the words in quotes, and then it will find the projects that have that word combination. If we search for the word bike, you'll notice that there are a few projects, one of which has the word bike in the title. The others have the word bike in the description. This will only search in the title or description. Find a file works as a word search just within one library rather than search this site. Find a file works like this. Notice that when it found the files, it did not display them. It displayed the groups that they were in. I don't know if you noticed, but the file counts changed on the different groupings. We just find a file with all documents. They're immediately displayed. And it's finding the words in the file as well as in the file name as well as any metadata that you have associated with that file. Now let's look at some display tools. We're going to look at the views in the From and To DOT libraries and the discipline libraries, and then we'll play around with ordering and filtering. In the From and To DOT libraries, the default view is the by phase view, and that is the view that's always on the left. Let me rephrase that. The default view is always going to be the view on the left, and in the From DOT library and the To DOT library, the by phase view, grouping files by phase, is the default view. The All Documents view, and you'll find the All Documents view quite handy at times, just displays every file in the library according to its file name or date or whatever the default is for that particular library. You will only ever see 2 or 3 views in a library. If there are any more, they're hiding under this ellipsis, and we're going to be looking at the ellipsis a little later. In the discipline libraries, the default view is by topic, and the View All view displays everything kind of as if it's in a spreadsheet. Now, some of you may have already discovered this, but if you click on the column header in a particular view, it will automatically sort by that column value. So we're sorting by date ascending, by modified date descending. And we can sort by who did it, ascending and descending. Notice that the modified column no longer is sorting or indicating a sort. If we go to the All Documents view, we break out of the groups, and we can sort by modified again, modified descending. Notice that the precon phase is an alphanumeric search, so you have 100% preceding 15%. Because it's a multi-valued field, the precon discipline field cannot be sorted because it doesn't know which field to use, and notes cannot be sorted because it's a multi-line field. Precon notes is only searchable. It's not filterable or sortable. So you have an opportunity to try this out. It's a fairly simple exercise. Note the order of presentation and the different types of views. All right, moving on. File view ordering, file view filtering. This gets a little more interesting. You have the ability to decide what you want to see, and we'll look at the From DOT library here. When you click beside the column, you get this drop-down list of all the values that are available to filter on. You can click on one or more of those values. Notice that the grouping has not changed. We click on geotechnical, or hydraulics as well. You can turn off hydraulics and go back to just geotechnical and try lighting and electrical. So either it will have lighting and electrical or it'll have geotechnical in it. It doesn't matter where in the sequence it is. Now if you go to a second column, it will only display the values that satisfy both columns' filters. And you can then sort as well. A quick exercise of this. If you click on the column header itself, you'll sort. If you click to the right of the column header, you'll get the check box or the checklist of all the items that are available. All right, that was filtering. Now, a little about a filter logic. We have a squarish, depending on the shape of your screen, blue square, and a roundish red circle. And the question is, what does the intersection of A and B look like? Either by color or by shape. Purple, and it's a semicircle. Now the question is, what does the union of A or B look like? It is the combination of both the square and the circle with no exclusions. A and not B A and not B is A with a chunk taken out for B. And the reason I bring this terminology up, and generally speaking with engineers, everybody goes, oh, I get it. If you're working outside the engineering and scientific community, there's a lot of misunderstanding on the difference between and plus. And is exclusive, you must satisfy both or all the values, or is inclusive and must satisfy either or any of the values. And that takes us to customizing our views. But before we do that, let's try it on another one. A or not B? Who wants to give that one a go? This is A or not B. This is A or not B, or this is A or not B, depending on how you define your universe. Now, we got that little fun out of the way. You notice that, and you may or may not have noticed, that whenever you make a change, whether it's a sort or whether it's a filter, these three words pop up. And that is a clickable link that allows you to basically take a snapshot of how this view is defined and create a view all your own. So if you click on Save This View, you have the ability to start customizing in a more permanent way the views you're working with. And the first thing it does is ask you to give it a name. And we're going to be very creative in this presentation. You just call it My View. And then it pretends to give you the choice of making it public or keeping it personal. The fact is, you do not have the ability to create anything other than a personal view. Notice that it's now inserted the new view between the default, which is on the left, and the other view or views that may be available in that particular library. Notice also that we had a sort and we had two filters, and all of the indicators of the sorts and filters have been removed. So when you are filtering a view and you save it, it's a good idea to put the name or give some indication that the view is filtered so that you don't assume that just because you can't see it, something isn't there. Now we also have the ability to edit or create a view. That ellipsis that I pointed out earlier, if you click on that and you have a view that you can edit, in other words, a view you have created yourself, you'll have the ability to modify the view, or you'll also have, and this is always available when you click on the ellipsis, the ability to create a new view. So if we click on Create View, the first thing you'll do is be asked, what do you want to start with? Do you want to start with a standard view or one of the other views that are currently available in this particular library? The ones that I have grayed out, the datasheet view, there are other ways of getting at it that are quite useful. The Gantt, calendar, and access view are views that are using information that we're not keeping in this library, so they're of no value. They don't normally gray out. So you choose one of the four available. We've got the previous My View that was just created. We have it in all documents and by milestone, and the standard view. The first thing we have to do is give it a view name. Now notice that this form is unusual and it's so tall it has an OK button at the top as well as at the bottom. So you give it a name. It then pretends to give you a choice here. You can't check Create a Public View. And then you select the columns. The first columns that you're presented with are the columns that were used in whichever one of those views you selected, whether it was standard or one of the others, in the order from left to right that they appear on the screen. All the other properties that are available in that library are then listed in alphabetical order below that. Now, if you want to change the sort order or the sequence, say you want to add a column for who checked out a document, you click on that checkbox, and then you go over, and if you want to put that, say you want to find out who did it and put it in column 3, if you click on that drop-down list that's currently set to 11 and set it to 3, we then go up here. 3 will be 4, 4 will be 5, 5 will be 6, 6 will be 7, 7 will be 8. It will not shuffle the presentation, but it will shuffle the numbers for you automatically. After you've got your columns selected or deselected that you want to see in your report, and you've got them sorted in more or less the correct order from left to right, you do not have any control over the width of the columns. You then have the ability to sort. Unlike the regular views where you click on the column and you can only sort by one column at a time, you have a choice here, or an opportunity to sort by two columns, first by one value and then by another. What's interesting about the sort is the columns don't have to be visible. So you could sort by modify, which is the date, descending, and the newest files will always be on the top, and you may not necessarily want to see the date that they were done, but you'll see the newest on top. View filtering is next, and many times these things are collapsed. This little icon here allows you to expand and contract each one of these sections. The default is show all items in this view. If you want to filter, you click on this and then you set the property. Choose one of the evaluators. Is equal to, is less than, is greater than, begins with, ends with, contains. And some will work on some types of columns and some will not work on certain columns depending on the nature of the data. And then you have to type in the value, which is a little frustrating because you're aware that a lot of our properties have standard column values. You have to know what the column is you want. You have to type it in. It is not case sensitive, but it is spelling sensitive. And then you go down and say whether you want an and or filter combined with the next value. Unlike the sort, which you're limited to 2, you do have the ability to filter on more than one column at a time. So if you click on Show More Columns down here, it will expand and add one more, and you can add one more, and you can add one more. I have not found a limit, but I'm sure there is one. The filter works in sequential order, so it filters by one value, then by another value, then by another value. As soon as you start getting a mix of and ors, life gets very interesting, and they don't provide parentheses. So if you're going to ask for a view of all of the work done in May of this year, how would you define that? And let's have some people put some suggestions in the chat or speak up. What would be the first value that we would put in this field here? What property value goes where the none is currently? If I want to view all of the files that were modified in May of this year, what is the column or property that I need to put, column header that I need to put in the none field? The field is currently set to none. Date modified, which is actually, it's just the word modified. That's correct. What do we put in the field below it? It's currently set to is equal to. And the correct answer is not is equal to May. Because it's a date begins with will not work. So that it sounds like it would be fun to say begins with May, but no, it's a date value, month, day, year format that the date is. So putting in the month just doesn't work. Contains, that's not going to work either for the same reason. It's not going to be able to parse a date as a portion of something. A date is a single mile marker in time. Now, it's not time sensitive. It's day sensitive only. The granularity is to the day. Is equal to, that would give you 1 day of May, but it won't give you the whole month of May. The suggestion is equal to is a real close to the correct answer. There are other forms of non-equivalence. Is greater than or equal to. Greater than works just fine. So modified is greater than, and what would we put in the last of these fields, the third field? We're looking for the month of May. No, it would be greater than April. So that would be 4/30/17. So that's the begin point. And then down here, you'd say and, not or. Modified is less than June 1. And that gives you the window of the 2 dates within which you will get your results. Thank you for all those that typed in their contribution. Moving on down, before I go on down, filter columns do not have to be visible, just like the sort columns don't have to be visible. But as I said earlier, you might want to make sure your view indicates that you're working with a filter. GroupBy is how we've defined the by topic and by phase of the libraries. You can group by 2 values, and if you go to the utilities and you go to the structures library, you'll see views that are grouped by 2 values where you have one value nested with another. Total, style, and folders don't apply. Item limit, this is one thing that I regularly change in any of the libraries that I frequent. I hate a 30 count page. I would much rather have a 100 count page or even higher. Now, keep in mind, if you increase this number, it'll take longer for the first page to appear. So I frequently will set this to 100 or 300, but 300 starts to try my patience. And then we are at the bottom of the form. So let's give this a try. One of the more unfortunate features of SharePoint is that views are defined on a per library basis. And there is no way to copy a view that you've created in one library for a project into another library, either for that project, which is not terribly useful, or the same library in a different project. We actually have to write code to create these things when we create each of these new projects every time we build a project. There's lots of code that has to be run in order to create the default views in every library. Alerts. Alerts are a tool that SharePoint has that when something happens, you get an email. That's basically its simplest form. You have to define the alert on a library or a file. Under the Files tab, you get this nice big bell, but unfortunately, or fortunately, it's rare to have an alert on a file. It's frequently useful on a library. Alerts are generated when something happens or when something changes. The first thing you do when you click on one of those bells and you say, I want to create an alert, you give it a name. It gives you a name, but if you have 10 projects, how many from DOT libraries do you have? 10. You get an alert and it says something came in the from DOT library. You have no idea which project. So the first thing you need to do is go in and change the title, because this is also the subject that you will get in your email. If it's an alert on a file, depending on the nature of the file name, you may or may not need to modify it. Once you set the alert, you then have a choice of delivery method. Well, no, you don't have a choice. It just pretends to give you a choice. Emails are the only thing available. You then have a flag on the type of change, these 4 buttons. And then you have another set of changes that you can flag on. You then have the ability to say whether you want it sent right away, sent on a daily basis, or sent on a weekly basis. It will compile all of the alerts for that library and send them in a single email, either on a daily basis or a weekly basis. And depending on which one of these buttons you click, these values will have meaning. You send it daily, Tuesday doesn't matter. You send it weekly, both Tuesday and the time matter. Now, if you've created a view with a filter, you then will get a 5th bullet item, and every filtered view will be in a list that you can pick from. So there may be a time when you may create a view that you'll never use to view something, but you may want to set up an alert when a file comes in with a specific property value, like submitted, that you get an alert so that you have a time to look at it, or you are notified that you need to go in and look at it. Or you may care about what somebody's doing in review, and when it becomes available, you get an alert when that property is set on that file in that library. Now, when you're creating alerts and managing alerts, if you click on one of these bells, You'll have the choice of set an alert. In this particular document, there was no document current, which is why this is grayed out, or you can manage your alerts. Unlike views, all of your alerts for a particular project are reported together. So if you have an alert on 5 libraries, you'll get 5 values here in this list. Now you can still only set the alerts on a particular file or library, but at least you get a nice aggregated report. If you click on Add Alert, you'll get a list of libraries to choose from for you to create a new alert. To delete alert, you click on the checkbox and you click Delete Selected Alerts, and they will go away. So your lab exercise is to create an alert. And notice that the second alert you're creating is for the second view you made in the last exercise. Check your email box. You'll find that you receive an email for every alert creation and every alert deletion, as well as every time something happens to trigger an alert. We just finished up session 4.